This is 50ish and Fab. For women over 50 who are still becoming, still building, and definitely not done, even if life tried to convince you otherwise. This is where grown women come to tell the truth, take up space, and live out loud. I'm KC Sonshine, and around here, we're not winding down, we're leveling up. Greetings, my fellow Goldies and everyone else enjoying life after 50 and giving zero F's about what anyone thinks about us. I bring you greetings and great tidings and joy and all that goodness from Brooklyn. As always, it's your girl KC Sonshine, your southern sweet tea with a splash of Brooklyn. Coming to you with today's episode of 50ish and Fab, the Hot Flash Report. So today I want to talk about there's just so much happening in the workplace and in the marketplace and with interest rates. And so today I want to talk about the workplace. The topic of today's show is working 9 to 5. And baby, that is something I know a whole lot about. Now, I don't know how old most of you all are. Most of you all should be, 50 plus, right? That's why we're 50ish and Fab. But this was a movie that Dolly Parton wrote the theme song for back in 1980. I was 13 years old when this movie came out, right? When I was born in 69? No, I wasn't 13. How old was I? I was 11. Excuse me. See, that's that third grade math right there. 69 to 80. How in the hell that's going to be 13? Well, if you take away 1 and add 2 and then 3. Okay. So I was 11 years old when this movie came out. It was like a classic because back then there wasn't a whole lot of black cinema, right? We didn't have a lot of choices. We had just bypassed that whole era of blaxploitation movies. Blaxploitation, you remember those blaxploitation movies and Foxy Brown and all of that? But this was just a good wholesome movie about 3 white women who got sick and tired of their boss and tied him up. You have to watch the movie 9 to 5. Anyway, it was one of my favorite songs, and even from the first verse, I'm going to just read the first lyrics without singing the hook. Tumble out of bed and I stumble to the kitchen, pour myself a cup of ambition and yawning and stretching, trying to come to life. Jump in the shower and the blood starts pumping. Out on the street, the traffic starts jumping with folks like me on the job from 9 to 5. Working 9 to 5, what a way to make a living, barely getting by. It's all taken and no giving. They just use your mind and they never give you credit. It's enough to drive you crazy if you let it. Hey, okay. So there you go. I done told y'all if y'all don't want me to sing, you need to like, share, subscribe so I can get some sponsors to pay for some of these music. Anyway, I love that song and I love that movie, and it really unfortunately spoke to how hard I worked coming into the workforce back in the 80s. I've been in the workforce so long that the first office I ever worked in, you could smoke cigarettes. How dumb were we? Probably got all canceled up. Literally, I worked for a company called Sears Siding, and this was 1985 or 86. I was still in high school, and my job was to take the phone book. Remember the phone book? Yellow pages? And we would call people and ask them if they were interested in buying siding. Yes, the original telemarketers, and long before there were 900 numbers, which would have been way more lucrative. However, yeah, we were calling people straight out. They were like, ma'am, I live in an apartment on this place. I'm like, oops. So if it had like a B or something in the phone book by the address, we knew not to call them because that was an apartment. And so that was my very first job. And baby, when I say my first office job, the first job I had, I worked at Hardee's, which is a fast food joint. And, when you grow up, I can't say this for all black people, right? I can only speak for me and, with the blackness that I know. And I have to say that I can say that is a common theory that when you are black, you have to be twice as good, right? Now, I know that for a fact because I saw it on Scandal. What's her name? Daddy said it. If no Olivia Pope, Daddy said it. It's got to be the truth. You got to be twice as good. So even though I was working in fast food, yo, I'm talking about like, you talking about the cleanest drive-through window in America. Like you can see your breath in my drive-through because my parents raised us to make excellence our companion. If you walk with excellence, being excellent is not a stretch. You don't have to reach for it. So I really prided myself on, how well I did things and I, did well there. And until they fired me. They fired me though because somebody threw a fish sandwich against my clean window and I called her a bitch. And well, she came in and if I didn't apologize, they were going to fire me. So the man fired me because I wouldn't apologize. Anyway, that was my soiree into fast food. But my point is that I have always in my career had to or thought I had to work hard because that's what was embedded in Gen X, right? We were taught, you work your way up, pull yourself up by the bootstraps and that kind of concept. And so I was watching TV a couple of weeks ago and caught this young man named the Corporate Baddie who is proudly Gen Z. No, he's Gen Alpha. Let's see. I think he's 24 years old and his name is DeAndre Brown and he calls himself the Corporate Baddie. So I was watching him talk about how he responds to things in the workplace. Hold on, I have an article here. I want to read a little bit of what he says. He has opened his own company called Gen XL Consulting. He's hosted his own TED Talk. So the little brother is making waves. Yes, he is Gen Z. And he talks about things like that generation is not interested in going the extra mile. That generation is not interested in giving their all and getting little in return. I have to say I'm proud of that generation in the sense that they are making demands and holding corporate America responsible. I have to give a shout out to millennials who really embrace the movement of corporate social responsibility. So that generation ushered in, we don't want to buy if your stuff's not green. We want organic. Because my generation, we ate pork chops, pigtails, cowtails. It didn't matter. Organic, that wasn't even on our, that wasn't even a thought. I just told you I was working in an office where they smoked cigarettes. So we surely wasn't thinking organic. So that as it relates to health improvements and being more aware and health conscious, we have to give a shout out, a clap to millennials because they really did usher that in. We worked too hard to think about health. We were scratching and surviving like good times. So who was trying to go to a gym and gym memberships? Now we are doing that because in our 50s at this stage, we own it like that. So it's important that we give them their accolades. But Gen Z, we have to think about it. This generation, they are digital natives. They do not know life without a computer. Okay, now I remember life without a computer. I remember the first computer I had, it was as big as my apartment in Brooklyn. Remember the big old box and it was only a green screen? Right? That was the Radio Shack TRS 80, I think, was the first computer. But this generation, they've always had a cell phone. They've always had internet. So their exposure has been completely different. The millennial generation, they kind of staggered between the two, but don't have enough awareness of life without to really speak to it like we can. So while I admire a lot of the things that he has to say, his concepts lean towards something that I recently heard about that's popular among latter millennials and Gen Z called quiet quitting. Okay? Let me explain what quiet quitting is. Investopedia says quiet quitting is a term used to describe employees who gradually disengage from their jobs, often without formally resigning. It can involve limiting tasks to the minimum requirements of the job description, reducing communication with colleagues and supervisors, lacking enthusiasm for the job, and being reluctant to take on additional responsibilities. Quiet quitting can be a sign that an employee is feeling undervalued, experiencing burnout, ready to change positions, and looking for another job. Okay, so now look, I ain't trying to be slick with it, maybe a little shade. But let's think about this. If you are Gen Z, right? What are they like? 12 years old? Like, okay, if he's 24, how long has he been in the workforce to be feeling undervalued, experiencing burnout, ready to change positions, and looking for another job? You just got out here. You still got Similac on your brain. So I'm not going to knock that. I'm going to say that this generation, good luck to Gen Z. And now I want to speak to the grown-ups in the room, okay? Come on, Gen X, let me talk to my people. So in the same spirit that Gen Z and latter millennials, the younger millennials, are engaging quiet quitting, there is a concept among older 50ish and up that's called quietly returning. How about that? So while they trying to quiet quit, I think we should just ease on in and take all their jobs. They gonna come home from work talking about grandma, I got laid off. And she gonna be like, baby, I'm so sorry. I got to go to work. She ain't got time to lament with you because we got things to do. So let's talk about this, which I am also one who has experienced a quiet return. I'll speak about my own experience in just a bit. But right now, let's talk about quiet returning, according to Forbes magazine. More than 2 million people retired during the first 18 months of the pandemic now appear to be heading back to work in what might be best described as quiet returning. Today, data shows that the quiet return to work of one-time retirees are at higher levels than before the spring 2020 alarm bells caused many to run for the exits. Like, so that's the pandemic. And they're like, okay, we don't know what's going to happen. And I'm so close, I may as well go ahead and ease on down the road. So there was an exodus, a mass exodus of people who were close to retirement, not quite ready, but retired for that convenience. The article says, at a time when quiet quitting, doing just enough to meet your job's position's description, but no more, has become a strategy for some to maintain their idea of quality of life, why would people who have worked decades and have achieved what has been sold as nirvana, aka retirement, come back to work? It's like, so if you've already done it, why would you come back? Well, here's what it says. In part, the reasons for return includes what many might assume: money worries and the looming threat of inflation. Survey data from Jobless do indicate that 27% of those quietly returning to work were doing so because they needed money, and another 21% feared that inflation was eroding their retirement nest egg. However, the data identify the primary reason for quiet returning to be neither money nor inflation woes. A full 60% of retirees returning to work said they were simply looking for something to do. Many people struggle with how to spend their time after they retire and miss the social connection that work provides. I share that because when you consider that we've got Gen Z quietly quitting, a group who experiences some self entitlement. I mean, if you've dealt with kids that are in the age group, there's just this sense of entitlement, and I am not knocking their approach to life. I am just saying that would not have worked for me. Not in that time frame, nor do I adopt those attitudes for my workplace today. My own personal story is that I had opened a small business in Brooklyn in 2015, shuttered the business in 2020 because of the pandemic, and had worked in corporate America, 30 years prior to that. Corporate America had been my whole life. Decided I wanted to do something different, and I did that. So when the pandemic occurred, I thought, I'll go back to college. Well, I went back to college before the pandemic because I went to get my associates in small business and entrepreneurship because I knew nothing about how to run a business. Corporate America teaches you nothing. You can't even compare entrepreneurship to working for someone. It's just not the same thing at all. So I went back to school, got my associate's degree. The pandemic happened and I decided to continue when I got a scholarship to NYU. Did that, graduated, and am now back in the comfortable cockles of corporate America. Is it the warm cockles? Is that what they call it? I am back in the warm cockles of corporate America. So that legitimately makes me a quiet returner. But my decision was based in part on money. I'm not one of those people who I just want something to do. After those years of being away in school and that kind of thing, it was time to come back to grown up life. And like I said, when I'm coming out, I'm coming out. I'm gonna need a 6-figure salary, and this is what I want. And I held my guns, and that's what I got. But as a business owner, you work so much harder for so much less. And now here I am working 3 days in the office, 2 days from my house, like just living the life, making a lot of money. I call it attendance checks. You're going to get paid if you just show up. You might not even do nothing. You might TikTok all day. So for me, also another consideration was retirement. The idea of like I can save, 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 but it ain't nothing like the matching free money of a 401k, baby. Like that matching money, somebody gonna match what I do when, how? Oh yeah. So there were many benefits to my quiet return, but I want to speak to again to the grown-ups, the older. I don't mean that in a discriminatory way. When I say that, I mean 50 plus, my audience. Some ways that we need to step up our game to make ourselves more valuable in the workplace. And if I look at the corporate baddie and the things that he's saying, I ain't got no competition. That strong work ethic that took me from a receptionist at IBM to the chief of staff at a Fortune 100 company served me well. And that was with a high school diploma, right? So I'm not mad at the grind. One of the things he says is that he doesn't want to hustle. I'm a hustler. Baby, I'm a hustler. Yeah, I'm a hustler. Because that's what I know. I'm not mad at a generation who can get more with less. I just don't know that path. So I want to leave you all with a few things that I think are critical when it comes to returning to the workforce. The first thing is I am the go to person in my workplace because I read the book. If there's a handbook, I read the book. Anybody, wherever I have worked, ask, she knows because I do. I had to correct the president of Burberry because she wanted to put in her speech that according to the dress code, you have to wear Burberry or it's black. I was like, that ain't what the book say. No, boo-boo, that's not what the book say. You can't put that in the speech because the book says that you can't come in heavily branded from a competitor. So you can't come up in Burberry with no big Gucci sweatsuit and a bunch of G's on it. So things like that make you a valuable asset. You can best believe if they quietly quit, they ain't reading the book. Let them go on and quietly quit, and you just quietly go on and bank your retirement, boo-boo. Save your coins and let them do what they do. So that's my first advice. Be a resource. Be a resource. It's going to be a lot of people who say, oh, well, I'm not going to, and you're going to be right where you're at. I got a girlfriend, literally, when I moved here in 2005, 4, whenever I moved here, who had already been with Verizon 10 years. Already been with Verizon 10 years. And I was like, oh, so you been with them 10 years? What do you do? She was like, oh, I do such and such. I was like, well, what's your plan? She's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, like, what are your next steps, in your position? She's like, yeah, I'm not going anywhere. And I swear to you, that 10, she has enough years to retire and she's still in the same role. It ain't no way I would commit no 25 years and be sitting up in the same chair. Like, why would you do that? And her lack of ambition is probably why we don't even hang out no more because I just cannot. You cannot be a dreamer and be friends with a dream killer, right? If they ain't got no dream they massage and they sure not gonna massage yours. So keep it moving. So I ain't seen nothing. Well, she's still at Verizon if y'all looking for her. Okay, so the next thing is don't be afraid of education and technology. Well, I have some older clients from my financial planning days, and they were, I say, like 70s. And we're so afraid of technology. So I was like, well, I'm not a guru or anything, but when I come to review your financial plan, I'm happy to see whatever I can do to get you going. So when I get there, her husband is like, Siri, tell Alexa to tell. I'm like, what in the world you got? Siri hooked up to talk to Alexa instead of talking directly to Alexa. It was all kind of confusing. It really was very simple to fix, but they were just afraid of the technology. Now, when you've got AI, I really didn't have much experience or exposure to artificial intelligence until I got back in school. So here, while I studied in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, it's forbidden. No AI use for papers. But then when I studied in Israel, also at an NYU campus, they encourage it. So that was really my first exposure to it. And while there's this hype about, oh, it's gonna take jobs and it's gonna take the quiet quitters job. If you quietly getting your hustle on, I think you're gonna be all right. So don't be afraid of technology and embrace the ability to go back to school. I went back to school. I got accepted at community college and got my AARP card the same day. And graduated, that's right, cum laude. Thank you very much. I killed that thing and did it well, saw the world while I did it. So it's never too late to go back and to enjoy education. I think those are the things that I will leave you with today that are most important. I want to encourage those that are thinking about getting back in the workforce to consider your value. And I found that in my personal search trying to come back into the workforce, it was difficult because now resumes have to be laden with all of these different keywords. I actually paid a service for my resume. I think I paid $350. I won't mention the company, but I paid $350 for them to plug my resume. So what you do is you send them the jobs you want, and they fill your resume with the keywords from the job, which you can do yourself on your own. You can do it on your own, but for $350, and then they have a guarantee like you'll get a job and so and so, and I really did get the job. So it worked, but take advantage of those opportunities. If you're looking for work, networking, 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 networking. Personal websites. These are things that back when we were looking for jobs in the beginning, I have never really looked for a job. I always got a job through a temp service. Any job I got, like I started with a temp service at IBM, they hired me. I had another temp service that went to AOL, they hired me. So I've never, until now, think about paying the service and networking. Just be out there. Put yourself out there, like free events, meetups, those kinds of things. Just the exposure. So I am sending you all much love, much light, much peace, much prayer, much power, and encouraging you to live your best life and to go out and claim it. You can have it. You affirm it. I have my daily affirmations. You should have your daily affirmations, and we should be living our best life as the golden era, right? So peace and blessings to you all. The God in me honors the God in you. Mwah, shalom.